You brought up on the rundown the playoff odds from Micah Blake McCurdy for the Oilers, and they were like 58% or something like that. I'm looking at Money Puck right now. They're 57%. And we sit here on a day-to-day and we ride the ebbs and flows on this show of every win and every loss. And today, after the loss to Tampa, it's kind of like, oh my God, this team's never going to figure it out. They're cooked. But then you look at those numbers and it's like, oh, like that's actually a pretty decent shot at still getting in this. From your outsider perspective, do you think 57, 58% is a fair number, or do you think the analytics are maybe being too kind to the Oilers?
In fact, like I actually, in my own head, if you were to say, like, what do you think the Oilers' chances of making the playoffs are without me looking at those numbers and without me assessing anything other than solely the way things have started, my answer would be somewhere around 65. That's not me being overly optimistic. It's just that this power play, it's not going to continue on with the top unit at 11%. It's not going to continue on with Connor McDavid being whatever he is in league scoring. We're living in a world. I saw this the other day on social media where Cole Perfetti has more points than Connor McDavid. Like, that's just not going to be a trend that continues on. And so if you actually take a step back, which I think is healthy to do, I know you guys are in the muck, but when you think about the situation that Jeff Jackson and Ken Holland have in front of them, you can kind of understand why there's, they've made two pretty significant moves to this point, waiving Jack Campbell and making a coaching change. Yes, there are more potentially on the horizon and potentially sooner rather than later if this doesn't turn around. But those numbers, the metrics, the underlying data that they have that's proprietary that points all this stuff out, they're feeling a lot like what those models are looking like, which is we can't just continually, try and burn this down. We've got to try and find a way to right the ship and get on that path.
So tonight, Calvin Pickard gets the start.
I love it. I think he should have already started.
I think that's
fair.
When
would you have started him?
I would have started him the first game on that road trip after you called him up. So it was, they went to Van and then they went, where was that?
The place we shan't name.
San Jose, or sorry, Seattle.
They should have started him against San Jose. Seattle was the Saturday night game. They should have started him against San Jose.
Pickard has not played in an NHL game since March 27th of 2022 when he was with the Penguins. He allowed 4 goals on 13 shots. This is an interesting spot in the Oilers season, I think, because if he comes in and delivers here, it probably eases a bit of pressure until his next start in terms of like organizationally pressure to go make a trade, go find someone out there. If this goes bad tonight, Frank, the pressure on Holland and Jackson to make a trade for a goalie, it's got to be getting cranked right up, right?
I mean, yes and no, because the reality in either situation, win or loss, is probably that he's not starting the next game again anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that you go back to Skinner. And I understand your thought process of why you'd say that, as my pen just exploded. The thought process of why you'd say that, it makes sense. But I think the Oilers have been really diligent in assessing the goaltending market. And I also feel like I know that they think that there are two different paths here in terms of what they do and what they spend. And the biggest issue for them is that they're having a hard time adjusting or correlating price to actually finding someone that's a difference maker or an impact guy.
So what do you make of the 3 names in Montreal? Like Jake Allen, probably too expensive unless Jack Campbell is somehow going back the other way. Montembeault, I mean, I get the sense Montreal probably wants to keep that guy around. Caden Primo, is he a legit solution to the problem here? Like, are any of these 3 realistic options?
I mean, I think 2 of them are. Like, I can't see the Oilers saying, hey, we're going to trade for Caden Primo. I like Primo. I think his numbers in the AHL have been quite good. I think the Canadians have done a really poor job managing his confidence level, particularly by leaving him out to dry last season. I like Montembeault, but like I wouldn't make a big bet on him trying to come in and be the savior. If any of those 3 guys you're going to trade for, it would be Jake Allen. I don't think he's like insanely expensive, because I also think the Habs would like to figure out their crease situation sooner rather than later, and perhaps turn the ball over to Montembeault and get Primo either playing or get him more time, so that they don't have to lose him on waivers, which is really the key point here. So that's the guy that, if you were looking solely at the Canadians, that I would be targeting, is someone that's been around and has experience. You can't go again after you hire a coach that didn't have any NHL head coaching experience to then all of a sudden be like, yeah, we're going to bring in Montembeault, who has however many games under his belt, to be our guy that rides us to victory.
Do you think the Oilers want someone who's going to split with Stuart Skinner then, or would they be good with having a very good backup goalie who's just going to kind of help Skinner where he needs to?
You okay there?
We're falling apart here,
Yeah,
literally
it's
and
just a
figuratively.
disaster.
It's okay. The Crown Royal's good. We're all good.
Whole situation. Yeah.
The Crown is good. We're good. I would think that, given the way Skinner has played, that you'd want someone that you could rely on to be the horse if necessary. Like this, consider what the Oilers are, what the expectations are this season. You're not like looking for a, hey, this guy could get us through the next 3 weeks. Like, I don't think, like, especially if you're moving real assets to do it, you're looking for a guy that like you would feel okay starting in a Stanley Cup playoff game.
Yeah.
That is easier said than done. The other side of it too, and I know this is getting talked about a lot, I wrote about it today at OilersNation.com, is if you're going to go get a guy and try to offload Campbell in the process, like 3 more years at $5 million. I mean, we're talking multiple first round picks and then maybe more here. Are we not, Frank?
I don't think so. I mean, look at what the LA Kings were able to do this past summer. Cal Peterson had 2 more years at $5 million. And they also included Sean Walker in the deal, who had 1 more year on his deal at I think it was almost 3. It's 265. So they traded 7, 6, 5, and 5, and they got a 2nd round pick for that.
They kept on Provorov too, though, right?
Yeah, but only 2 million. So it's still $5+ million that they withheld for 2 full seasons, and it was only a 2nd. I think it's probably 1 first round pick for sure, and probably a 3rd or something, but it's not 2 firsts.
I thought it'd be more like I remember that Marlowe thing a couple of years ago, right? Where the Canes got a first round pick for taking on that cap hit and buying him out. And I go, well, that was for 2 years of dead cap space. So 3 more is like
6
or
million
6 years of dead cap space.
There's only 1 year of Marlowe, I think.
1 year. 1 year, 6 million, I think, or 6 something.
Yeah.
And to the Leafs, that meant a lot.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just worried about what that cost is. And it makes me wonder, like, again, buying out Jack Campbell, like you just flashed up there, AB, it creates 6 years of dead cap space. In years 2 and 3, like it's 2.3 and 2.4 million bucks. What's the cost on Campbell if you retain half? Right? Like, can you keep half that money, bring it down to 2.5, go get another goalie somewhere for 2.5? You're net positive on the goalie front, but at least you found a better goalie.
I think it would be trade first, buy out second, retain third.
Like, the idea I keep coming to is like the San Jose Sharks got to be itching for first round picks here. Like, if you kept $2 million of Campbell and added a first round pick, could you get Blackwood? And then you have basically Blackwood in your brain is going to be 4.3 million. That's fine. You're saving $775K. San Jose sitting there going, we don't need a good goalie. We're rebuilding. We'll take Campbell, play him, whatever. He'll be junk, but we get a first round pick.
But what if you could trade a first and a third or something, not retain anything, and then take on Blackwood?
That would be awesome.
That would be ideal.
That should be exactly where they need to be looking.
Yes, let's tee it up.
They need to find any way they can not to have any Campbell money on the Bucks anymore.
That's exactly my thought process is you need to wholly get rid of that. And that's why the buyout would then be at least a little bit attractive, because what you really have to think about is next season and beyond. You want as little on the books as you can. And that would kind of be like a way better version of sending him to the minors, is having just 1 million that first year on your books.
then years 2 and 3 just aren't good. And then you have dead cap space for 3 more after that.
That's why the first priority should be getting him offloaded somewhere. And like today.
Yeah, they probably got to giddy up at some point here. Maynard's in the chat. He says, yes, Blackwood, let's do that. I would love it. Brett says, what about a guy like John Gibson? He listed off a couple other names as well. I don't see like that. He's too expensive. Like, then again, you have Skinner, so you don't need a Gibson type, or you don't need to spend on a Gibson type.
But why would you want to take on the turn? Like, you're back in the same hole that you've been in. And more than that, his numbers are just okay. Like, does anything that he has suggest to you that he's going to be that much better than, I mean, I know this year's numbers are pretty good, but they've been pretty good for Dostal as well. Or were 6 million. Do you want the term? Like, you're back in the same spot you were in. At least get someone in Blackwood that if he's no good, you have no long-term connection to him.
Yeah, I think he's the slam dunk option if you can find a way to get him.
Me too. Where would you go, Frank? Who would be the guy you would be targeting the most if you were the Edmonton Oilers?
Just trying to make sure I don't miss anyone. I'm pulling up the list of goalies, and the key part is availability, right? Like, you can.
I know everyone loved to bring up Binnington, but it's similar to what the answer you just gave on Gibson. Like, what, you want to go trade an albatross contract for another albatross contract? Like,
100%. Like, that's the part that I go, ooh, like, doesn't really make a lot of sense. And he also just had 100 games of totally mediocre play.
Saros?
Saros is not available.
Yeah, figured so.
I had you mentioned pods in the bank. Barry Trotz asked him point blank on the pod, is UC Saros available? He said, nope, just met with his agent last week. This is a guy that we want to have in our system for a long time. Elite goalies are hard to find. And if you have any hope of turning your team around and rebuilding and restarting, he's like, Saros is exactly the guy you need.
All right, so we can scratch that off the list.
Should I just keep telling you names that people are throwing out there? Like, people always ask about the Boston goalies, but my point would be, why would Boston want to get rid of a
What's
goalie?
the incentive for them to move either one? I don't really understand.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So, okay, that's another one off.
So one guy that I don't have any sense that he's available, but I think if you really made it worth their while, he could be a potential option. I love Vemelka.
Oh, Frank, don't
said that going into the season. We talked about Veggie, but like, isn't Arizona like kind of in the mix?
Yeah, they're trying to be competitive, but like, if you throw another, like, I don't know, throw another first round pick at them? They only have one. So that would be one guy I would think about.
What would it take?
It would be expensive.
That's why he's at another first, so like 2 firsts.
Could you do like Borgo in a first?
I mean, now
I
we're
think
just but
well, I'd rather get.
Yeah,
I think you probably could do something like that. What about okay, if we're talking purely based on play this season, Peter Mrazek. I know that you go, okay, maybe not all that comfortable about him starting a playoff game, but he's got a 915 on the 30th place team in the league this year, and he's in the final year of his deal at 3.8 million, and the Blackhawks are open to moving him. But he has a 10-team no trade, and I'm pretty sure the Oilers are on it.
God, this is gotta.
Well, that wouldn't be surprising either.
That's all this shit's
yeah,
change.
it's
so
annoying. Philip says, bring up Matt Berlin. Why not? He won back-to-back games with the Golden Bears this weekend. Shout out Bob Stauffer.
Jay, was it your cousin that had the Berlin jersey?
Tyler just dropped it off today. Signed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Matt was very excited to do that. He had a big smile on his face when he saw it.